Prince never forgot an insult. Friends, bandmates, even ex-wives would tell you, cross him once, and the grudge lasted forever. His perfectionism bordered on obsession, his need to be recognized as the greatest consumed him. But one person managed to wound Prince so deeply that it changed who he was as an artist and as a man. February 1983. Michael Jackson had just become the biggest star on the planet, Thriller selling millions, Moonwalk becoming a cultural phenomenon, his face on every magazine cover. Prince was still building his empire, still fighting for MTV airtime, still proving he belonged in the conversation. When these two met for the first time at a James Brown event, everyone expected mutual respect between geniuses. Instead, Michael looked at Prince and delivered a psychological blow disguised as casual conversation. Witnesses say Prince's face went pale. His signature confidence evaporated. For one rare moment, Prince looked vulnerable, even hurt. Then the anger came. The transformation happened so fast that people thought Prince might actually throw a punch at the king of pop. What stopped him wasn't security or common sense, but something more calculating. Prince decided in that instant that revenge wouldn't come through violence. It would come through music. And that decision sparked one of the most intense creative rivalries in pop history. Before we dive into what really happened that night, please subscribe to support more untold stories from music history. The early 1980s represented a seismic shift in popular music, when MTV's 24-hour rotation created overnight superstars and destroyed careers with equal brutality. Two names dominated this landscape, but they occupied completely different spaces in the cultural imagination. Michael Jackson arrived carrying the legacy of Motown and the Jackson 5's childhood stardom. By 1983, Thriller had transformed him into a genuine phenomenon. The album sold 1 million copies every 4 days at its peak, his videos pioneered the art form, and his signature moves became a universal language that transcended race and geography. He represented the acceptable face of black excellence in Reagan's America, safe enough for suburban parents yet talented enough to demand respect from the most cynical critics. But here's what the music press didn't understand: these two men weren't just competing for chart positions. They were fighting over something far more psychologically complex. Both grew up as prodigies, their childhood stolen by entertainment's demands. Both suffered under domineering fathers who saw their sons as extensions of failed dreams. Both developed obsessive work habits, spending 20-hour days in studios, demanding perfection, isolating themselves from normal human connection. Both feared obsolescence with paralyzing terror. And both believed, with absolute conviction, that they were destined to be remembered as the greatest artist of their generation. This wasn't professional rivalry. This was two men staring into a mirror and seeing the one person who could erase their legacy. February 19, 1983. The Beverly Hills Hotel ballroom glittered with music royalty honoring James Brown. Quincy Jones, Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, the atmosphere hummed with competitive energy, talented insecure people in fancy clothes pretending they weren't calculating who could advance their career. Michael Jackson arrived early, surrounded by his entourage, wearing a red military jacket with gold braiding, single white glove already in place. People who worked closely with Michael understood that he existed in permanent performance mode, always conscious of maintaining the image. Prince arrived 90 minutes late, intentionally. He wore a purple trench coat over a ruffled shirt, tight leather pants, and heeled boots. Dark sunglasses hid his eyes despite the indoor lighting. Where Michael's arrival generated excited murmurs, Prince's entrance created uncertain fascination mixed with discomfort. Nobody quite knew how to approach the strange, magnetic figure who seemed to exist outside normal social conventions. But backstage, something was building that nobody anticipated. Matt Fink, Prince's keyboardist, stood in the narrow hallway when Prince emerged from his dressing room. Michael Jackson walked around the corner, heading back to his own space, and the two men found themselves face to face for the first time with no handlers, no stage, no audience, just two prodigies suddenly forced into unmediated human contact. The moment stretched in that strange way time behaves when witnessing something significant. Michael stopped walking, recognition flashing across his features. Prince's body language shifted almost imperceptibly, his casual stride becoming more deliberate. Fink described an immediate change in atmosphere, as if the temperature dropped several degrees and ambient noise faded into background static. Other people instinctively created space, moving toward the walls. Michael spoke first, his voice carrying that distinctive soft tone. He extended his hand, that famous smile appearing, the same smile that graced a million magazine covers. But witnesses said Michael's smile at that moment didn't carry warmth. It carried calculation. He knew exactly what he was about to say and exactly how it would land. The handshake never completed. Michael extended his hand while simultaneously delivering what seemed like casual conversation but functioned as precision psychological warfare. He referenced Prince's recent success, acknowledged the buzz around 1999, then pivoted to comparison. He mentioned how Thriller had sold over 20 million copies, how his Victory Tour would break every record, how his videos received more airplay than anyone else. Then he looked directly at Prince and said something that translated roughly to, "There's only room for one at the top, and that position is already occupied." But the real wound came in what Michael implied rather than stated directly. He suggested that Prince's androgynous image, his sexual provocations, his Minneapolis sound, all of it worked for a niche audience but would never achieve the universal appeal necessary for true superstardom. Michael positioned himself as the crossover artist who could sell to everyone, while Prince remained too weird, too threatening for mainstream America to fully embrace. And then, according to Fink's account, Michael delivered the line that detonated everything. He looked at Prince's outfit, the purple coat and heels, and made a comment about how some artists needed gimmicks while others relied on pure talent. Prince's reaction happened in stages. First came the physical response, his face lost color, his jaw tightened, and his hand stopped mid-air and slowly curled into a fist. Fink said he'd never seen Prince look vulnerable before that moment. For someone who built his entire persona around superhuman self-possession, this crack in the armor was shocking. Prince's signature mystique evaporated, replaced by something raw and human and hurt. For perhaps 3 or 4 seconds, Prince simply stood there, processing the fact that Michael Jackson had just publicly diminished everything he'd worked to build. Then the vulnerability transformed into rage. The change happened so rapidly that witnesses describe it like watching someone become possessed. Prince's posture shifted, shoulders rolling back, entire body coiling with tension. His hand moved toward the table beside him, fingers wrapping around something. People disagree on whether it was a glass, an ashtray, or just empty air. And for one terrible moment, people genuinely believed they were about to witness Prince physically attack the biggest star in the world. James Brown materialized seemingly from nowhere, moving between them with decades of authority managing volatile situations. He placed one hand on Michael's shoulder, another gesturing toward Prince, speaking in that gravelly voice about respect and legacy. Quincy Jones appeared right behind him, steering Michael firmly back toward his dressing room. Others created physical separation, breaking the confrontation before it escalated into career-damaging headlines. But Prince didn't move. Even as the crowd pulled Michael away, Prince remained frozen in that tense posture. When he finally did move, he didn't return to his dressing room. He walked straight out of the building, through the backstage exit, not stopping to explain or maintain any pretense of professionalism. His bandmates found him 30 minutes later sitting in the tour bus, still wearing the sunglasses, staring at nothing. What nobody understood in that moment was that Prince had made a decision. Not the impulsive decision to throw a punch, but something far more calculated. Prince decided that night that he would destroy Michael Jackson professionally through the only battlefield that mattered, the music itself. He would create art so undeniable, performances so transcendent, albums so revolutionary that history would have no choice but to rank him above the king of pop. The James Brown tribute continued without Prince. Michael performed, giving no indication anything unusual had occurred. People close to Michael said he seemed energized, almost giddy, as if he'd won some invisible contest. Prince didn't appear publicly for 3 days, canceling interviews, claiming illness. Susanna Melvoin, who was dating Prince at the time, later revealed that he woke up multiple nights in cold sweat, reliving the moment of humiliation. Michael's dismissive smile burned into his memory. But on the 4th day, something shifted. Prince emerged from isolation with a clarity of purpose everyone around him recognized as dangerous. He called an emergency band meeting, laid out an impossibly ambitious vision, and demanded total commitment to a project that would become Purple Rain. This wouldn't just be another album. It would prove that Prince could achieve everything Michael had accomplished while remaining completely, defiantly himself. Every decision filtered through a single question: would this prove Michael Jackson wrong? The next 18 months represented one of the most intense creative periods in modern music history. Susan Rogers, his sound engineer, described walking into Paisley Park Studios at 3 a.m. finding Prince still recording, having been there since 9 the previous morning, refusing food or rest until he captured exactly the sound in his head. He wrote dozens of songs, discarding most, keeping only ones that advanced his vision of creating something undeniable. But here's what made this period so psychologically complex: Prince wasn't trying to copy Michael's formula. He was trying to beat Michael at his own game while playing by completely different rules. Where Michael created safe, universal entertainment, Prince wanted to prove you could be weird and sexual and uncompromising and still achieve that same commercial success. The band members who worked on Purple Rain remember this period with mixture of awe and trauma. Prince's perfectionism became absolutely tyrannical. He made guitarist Wendy Melvoin replay a solo 17 times because her emotional delivery wasn't quite right. He scrapped entire sessions if someone's timing was off by milliseconds. And through it all, people said he was haunted by Michael Jackson. He would compare his work to Thriller, analyzing what made Michael's album successful, figuring out how to incorporate those lessons without copying the approach. Michael Jackson wasn't oblivious. Industry gossip travels fast, and by mid-1983, Michael's team received reports about Prince's ambitious project. Michael's competitive instincts kicked in. When he heard Prince was planning elaborate music videos, Michael accelerated Thriller video production, making them longer, more expensive, more event-like. When he learned Prince was incorporating more rock guitar, Michael called Eddie Van Halen for the Beat It solo. Every move Prince made, Michael countered. But beneath the public rivalry, something more psychologically damaging was happening. Prince's obsession with proving himself superior consumed him in ways that affected his personal relationships, mental health, and ability to experience joy in his own success. Even when Purple Rain became massive, spending 24 weeks at number 1, earning over $80 million, Prince couldn't fully celebrate because Michael Jackson still existed as this impossible standard to overcome. Friends describe him constantly checking sales figures, comparing his numbers to Thriller, never satisfied because Michael still sold more overall. June 25, 1984. Purple Rain premiered simultaneously as film and album, and the cultural impact was immediate and overwhelming. The movie connected with audiences on a visceral level: a struggling musician trying to escape his father's shadow, trying to prove himself worthy, trying to transform pain into art. When Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy dominated radio, the title track became an anthem that transcended genre and generation. For the first time since Thriller, another artist had achieved that rare combination of critical acclaim and massive commercial success. But the victory came with complications. Media attention meant constant questions about his rivalry with Michael Jackson. Journalists asked if he'd surpassed the king of pop, if competition drove his creativity, if they would ever collaborate. Prince tried deflecting, claiming he didn't think about Michael, that he focused on his own journey. But people close to Prince said the questions bothered him deeply because even at his moment of greatest triumph, he couldn't escape Michael's shadow. The revelation that only emerged years later through careful interviews with people who were there, the truth that recontextualizes everything about their rivalry. Michael Jackson's dismissive comments, his assertion of dominance, his casual cruelty toward Prince, none of it came from genuine confidence. Michael delivered those psychological blows because he was terrified of Prince. He recognized in Prince the same obsessive drive, the same relentless perfectionism, the same willingness to sacrifice everything for artistic achievement. He saw someone who could potentially surpass him, and that possibility threatened the foundation of Michael's identity. So he struck first, establishing dominance before Prince could challenge him, wounding his rival psychologically to prevent a genuine competition where the outcome might not favor the king of pop. Prince understood this on some level, which is why he never publicly retaliated, why he refused to engage in media feuds, why he channeled everything into the music. He recognized that Michael's cruelty came from insecurity rather than strength, and that recognition made the wound somehow deeper. Prince didn't want to destroy a rival. He wanted acknowledgement from someone he respected as a peer. He wanted Michael to recognize him as an equal genius, to validate his artistry, to treat him with the respect that one prodigy shows another. When that validation never came, when Michael maintained his defensive posture until the day he died, Prince lost something he could never quite articulate: the possibility of being truly seen and understood by perhaps the only person on earth who might have comprehended what it meant to be Prince Rogers Nelson. Michael Jackson's response to Purple Rain's success revealed how deeply the rivalry had embedded itself in his psyche. Publicly, Michael congratulated Prince through carefully worded statements. Privately, according to people in Michael's inner circle, he was devastated. He'd spent years building what he believed was an unassailable position, and now someone had created a phenomenon that rivaled his own. Michael allegedly spent hours analyzing Purple Rain, looking for weaknesses he could exploit. The competition that began with casual cruelty had evolved into mutual obsession, two geniuses pushing each other toward greater heights while simultaneously poisoning their own ability to find satisfaction in their achievements. Perhaps the saddest aspect of this rivalry is contemplating what these two geniuses might have created together if that backstage confrontation had gone differently. Prince's virtuosity combined with Michael's pop instincts, Prince's fearless innovation paired with Michael's meticulous production standards, the potential for groundbreaking art was enormous. But that collaboration never happened because of ego, insecurity, and a moment of casual cruelty that spiraled into decades of mutual obsession. Michael couldn't resist asserting dominance over someone he perceived as a threat. Prince couldn't forgive the psychological wound of being dismissed and diminished. And both men, brilliant as they were, lacked the emotional maturity to recognize how their rivalry ultimately hurt them more than it helped. Michael Jackson died on June 25, 2009, at age 50, from acute propofol intoxication. When Prince heard the news, witnesses say he went silent, retreating into his Paisley Park compound for days. He never spoke publicly about what he felt, but people close to him said Michael's death forced Prince to confront something he'd avoided for 26 years, the recognition that the rivalry had been pointless, that the competition had cost both men something essential to their humanity. Prince himself died 7 years later, on April 21, 2016, at age 57, from accidental fentanyl overdose. His death shocked the world, revealing a hidden struggle with pain medication. In the aftermath, people analyzed the pressures that might have contributed to Prince's addiction, the physical toll of decades of performances, the psychological weight of perfectionism, the isolation that comes from being treated as an icon rather than a human being. Today, music historians debate who was greater, Prince or Michael Jackson. The question remains unanswerable because greatness doesn't operate on a simple scale. Michael revolutionized music videos, broke down racial barriers, achieved unmatched global fame. Prince played every instrument on his recordings, produced groundbreaking albums that blended genres impossibly, and maintained artistic control in an industry designed to strip artists of agency. Both were geniuses, both innovators, both culturally transcendent. But the rivalry that began with a backstage confrontation in 1983 prevented both men from reaching their full potential. They wasted energy on competition that could have gone into collaboration. They fed each other's insecurities instead of supporting each other's growth. They turned music into warfare instead of art. And both died younger than they should have, carrying pain and isolation that might have been lessened if they'd found a way to move past that initial wound. The tragedy isn't that only one could be the greatest. The tragedy is that both men believed greatness required the other's destruction, and that belief poisoned their achievements even at the moment of their greatest triumphs. When people ask what really happened backstage at the James Brown tribute in 1983, the simple answer is that two insecure geniuses collided, one delivered a psychological blow, and the other spent the rest of his life trying to heal from that wound. But the deeper truth is that something died in that hallway, the possibility of connection between two people who understood each other better than anyone else on earth ever could. Michael Jackson and Prince Rogers Nelson were mirror images, reflecting back each other's brilliance and each other's damage. And when Michael chose dominance over recognition, when Prince chose revenge over forgiveness, they both lost something irreplaceable. They lost each other. And music lost what might have been the greatest collaboration in history, sacrificed on the altar of ego and fear in a moment of casual cruelty that neither man could ever take back. So we return to where we started, to that moment in the Beverly Hills Hotel hallway when Prince's face went pale and his confidence evaporated and he made a choice that would shape the rest of his life. Prince never forgot that insult from Michael Jackson. It became part of who he was, for better and worse. And music history was forever changed by a 90-second conversation that neither man could escape, a rivalry that elevated both their careers while diminishing both their lives, a tragedy disguised as competition that we're still trying to understand decades after both geniuses left us far too soon.